What's going on, everybody? Okay, so I actually carried this knife all week and probably used it. Well, I know I used it more than any knife I've tested so far. You can see that the green canvas micarta has now turned a darker color from the oils in my skin. A lot of that is just from fidgeting with this knife, breaking it in and stuff like that. The knife has broke in very well. I do want to say that when I close it, there's a spot right there that I can feel some grit. So I don't know if that'll come out. That's what I was feeling in the two that I took back. But this one actually, as you can see, will flip. The other two would not flip at all, but this one will flip every single time. I want to say I really like this knife. Some of the scores may not totally reflect that, but this is probably my favorite knife that I've tested so far. Now, I'm not saying this is my favorite knife. I'm just saying this is the favorite one I've tested so far. I like the way it fits my hand. I like the way the jimping right here is on the back. This thing slices like nobody's business, and it comes as a razor blade. It is amazing. The wire clip isn't bad. It's pretty nice. And getting to this liner lock is perfection. You know, I talked about this in other videos. Some liner locks aren't easy to get to. This liner lock, perfection. Great. But without further ado, let's get into the notes. Had to add a pen to it because the wind blew my paper off. So, this is the Ace Biblio, like we said. Giant Mouse is the manufacturer. Again, green micarta scales, wire clip. Beautiful, beautiful knife. If you want to see the full specs, go check out the video before this one. I did a full rundown of all the specs. So, we're going to get into carryability. I give it an 8. And you're like, an 8? What? I thought you said you liked it. Yes, I do. I really, really like this knife. But I'm going to tell you why I gave it an 8. When you shut it, this back here is just a little bit sharp, and it's a little fat. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. I'm not saying that it was bad to carry, but this does not melt away in your pocket like the Benchmade Bug Out does. With the thickness of it, this right here is a little bit sharp on the back. You can see that. And when I'd stick my hand in my pocket, sometimes it would grab the back of my hand. Not a big deal, but a little bit of an annoyance. So I did drop it just a little bit because of that. I just wanted to justify why I gave it an 8. I think those are good reasons. Next, Practicality is also an 8. I've been given a lot of these knives. You can see 8s for Practicality. And I think EDC knives will rank higher than hard use folders will, such as the Strider SMF. This is a good knife. I'm not saying it's not a good knife, but I think the EDC blade does more tasks better than this. But on a hard use folder, you can do hard use tasks, whereas I don't know how well this liner lock will really hold up to really, really abusing it. So I can't give it a 10 because it doesn't do everything perfect, but I do believe stuff like this will actually rank even lower than an 8 whenever I get around to reviewing the Strider SMF. So an 8 is probably about as good as you're probably going to see out of knives that I review, because I don't think anything deserves a 10, because I don't know if there's anything out there that will do everything great. There's always flaws that you're giving up, you know, if you're carrying a small knife or a big knife. There's always, you know, you have to give and take, and an 8 is probably going to be about as good as you see on that. All right, sliceability, 10. We all knew that was coming. This thing is steel. I mean, I have cut a ton of stuff with this. It is still, I don't want to shave off too much because my wife will freak out, but it is still a razor blade. I mean, this thing is amazingly sharp, straight out of the box. Awesome. If you need to slice something, this knife is probably going to do it. So next we have holding edge. If I'm not mistaken, this knife has M390 steel, I believe it was. And if not, I'll correct it in the video, but I believe it has the M390, which is an amazing steel. On the chart of, you know, Blade HQ, it was like almost completely maxed out. This stuff will hold an edge like nobody's business, but there's a give and take to that as well. Sharpening it will be harder than like your normal S30V or S35. It's going to be a little bit harder to sharpen than those knife blade steels will be. So holding edge is awesome. A little bit more difficult to sharpen. You got to give and take with that. But it's not dulled at all that I can see. And I've cut a ton of stuff with this. Boxes, bags open. I've cut hose. I've cut all kinds of stuff with this knife, and it is still just as sharp right now as it was when I got it out of the box. Warranty, 9. I don't know if anybody's warranty is going to get a full 10. The only knife that I even remotely even can think of that would get a full 10 is like these Uncle Henrys that used to be made years ago, and they would send you a new knife if you lost your knife. Literally, if you lost it, they would replace it, I think, for the first year. So if you lost it for the first year, they would totally replace it. That deserves a 10. There's like little, stuff in the small, prints on this stuff that makes me wonder, will they cover everything? I don't know. I think they will. I've sent 2 of these back, and they replaced the knife, so their warranty is really good. But if I had the knife for 10 years and had something go wrong with it, would they fix it? I would like to think so, but there's just some verbiage in their warranty that makes me think there's some loopholes there for them. So I don't know, but I gave it a 9. That's pretty good on warranty because they do have a pretty good warranty, and I have tested it out twice, so they get a pretty high score on that. And I want to say even the Benchmade got an 8. We all know how good Benchmade's warranty is. This did get a better warranty because I've actually had to use their warranty twice, and I got a quick turnaround. So they did a good job, but like I said, depending on how long you have it, there is some verbiage that could give them, I ain't gonna say a way out, but could cost you something later on down the line. Materials, I gave it an 8. I'm gonna tell you why I gave it an 8. I think the blade steel is really good. It is hard to sharpen. You still get steel liners, which isn't horrible. But sometimes I would like to see titanium liners in some of these really expensive knives because you're paying more money for these. I mean, this knife was $175, just like the Spyderco Gail Bradley too is $170 some, and it has steel liners. I do want to say this right here is amazing. The lock is amazing to be able to get to and unlock versus the Gail Bradley. But one reason it did get such a high score is this canvas micarta is amazing. So an 8 is, pretty good. Overall, it's pretty high. It actually was higher than the Benchmade, which got a 5. So an 8 is pretty good out of this. I mean, it is pretty good. 8's going to be a pretty high score for materials because there's a lot of great materials in here. This would have got a 10 if it would have had titanium liners. That would have made it a little bit lighter, but I did knock it just a little bit for that. So ease of use. So ease of use with this knife is amazing. I do want to say I had it actually at a 7, and the more I thought about it, and this lock, the ease of getting to this lock actually bumped it up 1 point. No lies. Just being able to get into that lock like that right there bumped it up. Getting it in and out of your pocket, I do want to say. So getting this in and out of your pocket, I did have this grab my pocket a couple times when I was putting it in it and kind of stick a little bit. And this right here actually grabbed my basketball shorts. Now I love this jimping right here. I would not change that for nothing, but I did have that grab and kind of pull. It almost sounded like it ripped my shorts. So that kind of freaked me out a little bit. That's kind of why I had it knocked down to a 7. And I want to say, I guess the reason it flips so good is because the detent is so strong, but reverse flipping this, you can do it, but it is tight. I mean, sometimes it don't do it because, there we go, but it is tight. And you see it almost fly out my hand because that detent was so tight that when I actually got it good, it actually flipped pretty stout. And but that detent is pretty tight. So there is a couple of things. Using the flipper is pretty easy. I almost wish it was just a hair longer, because even now there has been a few times that I would go to flip it open and it didn't flip all the way open. It would go like most of the way, and I'd just shake it a little bit and it would pop. I'm sure that's got some break-in use and stuff like that, but I really believe if they made that just a hair longer, that it would make it a little bit easier to use. But still, yet an 8 is amazing. And you can see I put lock right there because that lock, perfection on a liner lock, being able to get into it. They just scalloped this a little extra, and you can see how you can actually get into that, and there's not a big deal. When I finally review the Gale Bradley 2, you'll see I'll take a huge hit for the lock. Weight, I gave it an 8, 3.77 ounces. It is under 4 ounces, and you know, under 4 ounces is going to get a high score. A lot of people say 4 ounces is the perfect EDC or under. It is under, so it got a high score for that. Not as high as the Benchmade, of course, because the Benchmade weighs nothing, the Bug Out, but it's still got a respectable 8. The cool factor is a 7, and the only reason I gave it a 7 is because I've showed this knife to a few people, and they didn't know what it was. Now, they thought it was cool, but they didn't recognize it. So, you know, Giant Mouse isn't as recognizable as, you know, like a Benchmade Bug Out or a Spyderco Para 2 or some of those more iconic knives. Do I think this is an iconic knife? Yes, I love this knife. I love it. I will never get rid of this knife because it is amazing. But the cool factor got dropped down just a little bit because, like I said, you pull it out, people's like, well, you know, it's a nice knife. It's not big. It's not too small. It looks like a decent EDC. They feel it, and they're like, that chow's a little bit close. But they're like, who makes it? And they turn it over, and they see this little ace right here with the mouse, and they don't recognize what the mouse is. So unless you're just talking to a knife guy, I had one person that knew what this was when I pulled it out of my pocket, and nobody else did. So I kind of knocked it for that. They still thought it was cool, but it's not totally recognizable. So it ain't as cool as, you know, say a Benchmade or something like that. Okay, and finally, Fidget Factor. I gave it an 8. Why'd I give it an 8? I think it's fun to fidget with, I do. There again, if this would have been just a little bit longer, as you can see right there, that was not flipping out with authority. Now that flipped out pretty good, but you really kind of have to push on it quick to get the flip out like that. So I feel like if this was a little bit longer, the Fidget Factor would be a little bit better. And like I said, sometimes when you get started flipping it, you know, it doesn't flip out all the way sometimes, and that's a little bit annoying. I did find myself flipping this a lot, but it was trying to break it in a little more and stuff like that. So 8 is what it got. I think that's respectable. You know, it's not as cool as the Benchmade Bug Out on the Fidget Factor, but 8 is very, very respectable. But yet again, I tried to rank this knife unbiasedly because I really liked it, and I try to think like not just myself but everybody, and I think you're going to give it about an 8-ish on that. There are knives that fidget better. I think the Spyderco Para 2 will probably get a 10, and there's just knives that, you know, the Fidget Factor will be a little better on, and so 8's respectable, but it couldn't get a 10 because, like I said, I think there's knives that can fidget a little better. And one reason I did knock it is because it is so difficult to reverse flick it at times. It's starting to break in better, and that's getting a little bit looser, and it's getting easier to do. But I've actually started to flip it, and like a couple times it wouldn't flip, and I was like, man, my finger's getting a little sore. So I kind of had to, you know, stop doing that and go back to flipping it with a flipper. It is what it is. Once that detent breaks in a little bit, I'm sure it'll be easier to do. But like I said, there are just knives that are more fun to fidget with than others. This one's nice, but there's still some that are better. All right, so the best we've had so far is the Benchmade Bug Out with an 85. What did this score? Dun, dun, dun. 84. 1 point under the Bug Out. Now, I want to say, the thing that got the Bug Out the win was the weight. Which knife would I prefer, this or the Bug Out? I prefer this. It fills my hand better. I think they both slice just about as good as the other one. This might even be a little bit better than the Bug Out, but I think they both are amazing slicers. The Bug Out's probably a little bit better to fidget with, but the weight got it. when you have a knife that weighs just slightly over 2 ounces with G10 scales and a deep carry pocket clip, it's just going to melt away in your pocket, and that is why the Benchmade Bug Out beat it out by 1 point. But in my opinion, if I had my choice to carry this or carry the Benchmade Bug Out, in my personal opinion, this is going in my pocket and the Bug Out's going back in the drawer. Hope y'all like this video. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you next time.